I have no idea what this place was used for, but it is built like a fortress. Nowhere to lie, at least 4-foot thick walls here. And pretty spacious to say the least. Plenty of room for activities. In this video, we're gonna explore this and another nearby structure, and hopefully learn what they were used for. It was not too long ago that I was riding down these very same rails aboard a 1950 RDC. And although my trip wasn't completed due to an ice blockage, that trip did offer me some opportunities. And that was to spot things that typically you only see by rail. Down that direction, off the side of the tracks, I found not one, but two structures that caught my interest. I'm curious what they are and to see if we can learn more about them. If you want to find out as well, just come along with me. We're now a few hundred yards south of where we just started our video near the rails. The rails are straight ahead near the road. And we're now inside, I guess you could say, a former complex, which is now a dumping ground. Got some semi-trailer tires, radio flyer wagon, and who knows what's in the trash bags. But before we proceed any further, I do want to take you a little bit back in time. We're going to go back to 1992 of where we are currently. And on that image, you can see this was a big complex. There was multiple buildings, one main building through the center, big parking lot area, and it looks like it was open and operating at that time. And then we fade to 1999, and there, looks like it was nearing the end of its operating days. And then if we fast forward to 2005, demolition has started. Only some of the structures are remaining then. Fast forward to 2010, demolition is completed. But two buildings are spared. And lastly, 2025, nature is slowly reclaiming this site, as well as garbage as well. So, as we learned, there are two buildings that were spared, which I don't know why. One is over in that direction, and the other is over in that direction. And these are buildings I spotted via my train ride down the tracks that border this property. Now, the one thing I don't know is what this place used to be when it was open. I do know it was a pretty massive facility, as we've seen. Big parking lot for employees, a lot of acreage here, and it closed sometime around 2000 or so, give or take a few years. And we know it's close to the rails, may or may not have been serviced by rails back in the day. And we are here in Luzerne County, just outside of Wilkes-Barre near Mountaintop. So if you have any information based on this site location as to what it was when it opened, when it closed, anything like that, by all means, would love to hear that information. Otherwise, if we don't find out, we're just going to show you what's left today. I will say though, I am a little bit perplexed because, well, I am the only one here, I think, but behind me, there is a random car back there, and I don't know if it's someone. Can you even see it? Yeah, I don't. Oh, they're actually moving right now. I thought it was just a parked car, maybe dumped here, but no, they're moving. So someone was coming here, taking a break, I guess, and maybe my arrival chased them out of here. So I guess we are going to be the only ones here in just a few moments. But yeah, they're leaving as we speak. So we'll be able to explore this properly without interrupting anyone's activities, whatever they may or may not be. Yeah, so here we are looking away from the buildings and the main property. This is the parking lot area. You can see it's a big, open, vast area. Goes way back there. There is some old fencing that did surround the buildings. And obviously the buildings are gone. The foundation's pretty much here, a concrete pad, but the fencing's still here, just in deplorable condition, barely surviving. As we can see in the distance though, there is one of the two structures right back there. Uh-oh, you see what I see? We found something that confirms it's officially abandoned. We found Christmas. Yep, it's official. Anybody looking for their Alabina CD? You left it here. So we're essentially inside the fence line now. You can see the old macadam here. Concrete is there. That's where the buildings would have been, I believe. And we have the first building we're going to check out directly ahead of us here. And from what I could tell, based on Google imagery and riding by it on the train, I don't think there's anything inside. Obviously, it had a roof back in the day. I think it's just a concrete shell. We're going to confirm that. I don't know what it would have been used for, obviously, but what I'm kind of confused about is why were two lone structures left to survive where everything else was knocked down. Maybe they had plans afterwards to utilize this property for something else. Maybe we'll find out. Probably not, but that's just things going through my mind. So let's get over there. We'll take a closer look at that, see if we spotted anything along the way, and then we're gonna head over to that building right there. Well, I can tell you, someone's been driving back here to this building. It's pretty worn down with tire tracks. And here is manhole cover. There's cattails in here now and a couple inches of water. Looks like almost conduit right there. It is extremely windy out too. It's about 45 degrees, overcast. Mother Nature can't make up her mind. A couple days it's in the 70s, other days it's in the 40s, and everywhere in between. All right, so we arrived. I'm standing with the building behind me now. Just to show you where we came from, this is a pretty sprawled out property. And this is at the far north end of it. And here we are. It was big, whatever it was. Got a pretty large bay door here. And look what I see on the inside, rails. Now the rails could have been one of two things. Could have been rail cars being brought in here, or it could have been equipment that moved on rails. That I don't know, but that's the first thing that I spotted when I looked inside. And beyond that, graffiti, of course. I will say it's at least a bit better than some of the typical stuff we see that's lacking creativity, to put it mildly. So, what was this used for? I'll say a term that some of you probably know. It looks like it's built like a brick shit house. It's just stout and thick and not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, the walls are at least 3 feet thick. The height from ground to top there, even though it's not the roof, but from what we can see, is probably 20 feet. There's a doorway there. I didn't even spot that at first. Where the heck does that go? Huh. Little manway corridor. Does it just come outside? Yeah, that's all it is. Man, this thing is solid though. It's almost like a bomb-proof building if the roof is still in it. But look at the thickness. I mean, here's my hand for scale. I got, like bear paws. That right there, that's probably closer to 4 feet thick. So another manway directly over there. Nothing else on the inside. There is some bracketing on the walls, some mounts. You can see where things were residing. In the corner over here, there's some electrical, maybe plugs. I think that's a plug, some type of plug. Something looked like it was mounted there, piece of machinery. Now you may hear like a noise in the background. There is a nearby business that borders this property. That's what you do here. It's nothing on this site though. This is a whole separate, empty, vacant lot, technically abandoned. The only thing I did spot though, going through the Google images through the decades, is that there was a period of time where semi-trailers were parked here. Must have been like for storage, but there's nothing here today. Rails are right up there. I'm gonna check over there. I do see a fire hydrant and some pipes protruding out of the ground. This had an actual door here. You can see where it would have had it's like a gas shock to close it slowly. There's some cinder blocks that were covering the concrete. Look at the rebar, the thickness too. It's probably an inch in diameter. Now on the outside, I didn't spot any rails walking up to this place. They could have been removed, or they could have never been there. It could have been for something inside here only. That's what I'm thinking, is that there was equipment, almost like we've seen at the International Boiler Works in East Stroudsburg, where there's rails in different areas for equipment or machinery to move on. I'm thinking that's what we're looking at here. I was doing an opening segment here, and I just noticed that I missed before. Light right there. Might be a porcelain fixture. Bulb's still intact, and a couple of bird nests above it. But I believe it's green. Yeah, it might be green porcelain. So this was a lighted corridor. But I just can't get over the scale of these walls, though. I mean, this is probably some of the thickest concrete I've seen on an adventure exploration like this, other than something like the Hoover Dam. You know what I just noticed? How did I miss this before? Unless I'm just wanting to believe. Is that Mr. Voorhees right there? The Jason mask? Possibly. Looks like maybe a Temu version of him. But that may be what they were going for, I think. I don't think that's true though, but I'm thinking that almost looks like it was a sliding door at one time. Oh. Ooh. Are we gonna catch a train? What timing? Those same tracks is how we spotted this property, so get a little bonus train action here, Reading and Northern. There it is. $25.34, $25.35. Maroon colored diesel locomotives pulling some mixed freight for Reading and Northern. Short little freight train, but perfectly timed. I sprinted out of that building so fast. I heard that, I was like, ooh, I got instantly excited. So just want to get back to this door here before we do move on, because it just stands out differently than the other things. There actually may be some confirmation of that. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. Now, a couple of things I'm noticing. Up on top, there's some vertical lines. So something was mounted up there. That's one thing I noticed, but this big slab here is not a wall. This is an independent piece that's not attached to the wall behind it. There's a gap. And it made me believe that that might slide to enclose this. I don't know how that would move or what it would take to move that, but it almost appears like that's what it would be. I thought originally a bay door, which it still could have been. You know, a roll down, maybe steel door. But that does look like it did slide over, and that would make this place like impenetrable from the outside, other than the doorways. So let me show you on the ground here, next to the rails, there's some steel plating that lines up almost perfectly, but not perfectly with that slab. But look at down here. There's a gap. I mean, it is not attached. I'm trying to get you guys to focus here. Yeah, you can see light all the way through it. So this is an independent piece of concrete that may or may not have moved at one time. It looks like it's sitting flush on the ground, so I don't see any rollers or guides or rails. But if it doesn't move or didn't move, what was it for? I want to show you really quickly just how big this building is compared to me, because camera is not doing it justice. When I get closer, the building's gonna get bigger, I'm gonna get smaller. Still hear that train horn. So here we are, 5'11" me inside the doorway of this gargantuan, almost bomb-proof building. This one's perplexing, even though it's primarily empty inside. It has some clues that I can't really piece together yet, other than something that was in here needed to be contained. From what? From who? I don't know. If you happen to know, by all means, let us know. But we're gonna head over here now because there's an old fire hydrant and some piping. It looks like maybe borehole pipes. So we'll see what those are, and then we'll move to the south end of the property. So right up here on this ridge line is the rails. You can see there's another fence that bordered the property. There's some cattails here, or as I like to call them, nature's corn dogs. Water main access right there. But then we have a few pipes. They remind me of boreholes. And how deep is that? Let's see. We'll get this stick here. It's about probably 4.5 feet. And that goes all the way in without touching. I don't know where the bottom is. Let's try dropping a rock down there slowly and see if we can maybe hear something or see it. Oh, it just disappeared into the blackness. That's over 4 feet deep. Here's a smaller one. Let's see. Okay, that one only goes a couple inches. There's two more right here. Water's down lower. And I'm reaching, cannot touch the bottom. That's over 6 feet deep. And let's see this one here. Okay, I'm hitting bottom right there, about 3 feet in. So the two big ones, depth unknown. Short ways away from the boreholes. Another water main here. Let's see. There's water down there. And a fire hydrant. Let's see if we can get any information off it. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Right there. And right here, Mueller. M-U-E-L-L-E-R. Mueller, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Truth be told, I thought I was going to be here maybe 15-20 minutes. I thought this was going to be a shorter video. And I'm not trying to draw it out by any means, but there's actually more here than I realized. This building, I thought I'd be in and out in 5 minutes. Not the case. So we're going to walk south to the second building here. And along the way, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled. I'm just noticing right here, there's some rock that's flattened out with like a little depression here. Some more wetlands area, some down telephone poles. So I'm going to walk through here on the way to the building. I'm not going to walk and scour the entire property. It'd be a needle in the haystack since everything is kind of overgrown. But if anything was super important to see, it'd be visible. You know, if I didn't know any better, I would think that rails were here. This is not your typical traditional ballast, but it's still ballast. These look like shards of old railroad ties. And they lead right to that depression that I was showing you, right by the edge of the grass. Maybe there was lines here that I didn't realize. I'll have to look back maybe on the older maps. Oh, wait a minute. Look what I just spotted. Uh-huh. I think we got our confirmation. If I could find confirmation on maybe even some older images, I'll share them in this moment. But otherwise, maybe it just wasn't visible from satellite. But I think we are pretty confidently looking at where tracks did lay at one time. We're continuing progress and came upon another fire extinguisher. This one says FM 175, Euler 5.5, Albertville, Alabama. That's different. Actually, it looks like it has a hook up here. Like this was used. I wonder if this building was ablaze at one time. And here's some fire hose right here. Look what I'm spotting. More rails. Okay, now this is a bit perplexing. There's numerous rails here. So, was this serviced by rail? Was this something to do with the railroad itself? I don't know, but inside, we're inside a building right now, and there's rails all throughout it. I see at least 4 to 6 sets of rails coming through this building. So there is a good likelihood that they did indeed go into that building. So maybe my suspicions of it being machinery on the inside is not accurate. Maybe rail cars were prevalent here inside this building, which you can see the length of this concrete, how big it is. The rails are pretty much the whole length of it. And we saw where rails probably would have been with the ballast area. So what was this site? I still don't know. Hope to find out. But one way or another, I'm pretty confident to say now that railroad did play a part in it. You know, I'm looking now, these tracks don't look like your normal traditional tracks. They're, the width on the top of it, the head of it, is narrower than usual. I'm really getting myself confused. Instead of speculating anymore, it's going to be either rail cars or machinery that was inside this building and on site here. But they went for the length of the building. We saw a ballast area with a plate and spike, so I think it's maybe a combination of both. Or let's leave it at that. Until we find out more information, I don't want to keep speculating, but this rail doesn't look like your normal width rail for full-size train cars. But we do have our next building right there. That one, I could see a roll-up garage door. Got the manway in the back, and I believe it has a roof, so maybe something's inside. There's only one way to find out. Gonna take a gander in there first. There's a satchel hanging on the branch here. All right, there are some things in here. Once again, rails came right into this building. Remnants of an overhead roll-up garage door, overhead fluorescent lighting, and behind you guys is a bridge crane. Right, 5-ton capacity. You can see the crane rides on those 2 concrete protrusions. Looks like there's rails up there. There's wheels. What's that song? Came in like a wrecking ball? Rails. Okay, these are full-size rails, and they're actually curved upwards as like a stopper. But these, the head, the top is much wider than what we saw out there. This almost reminds me of like a service shop or a paint booth for either equipment or a train car. There's a doorway here that goes in and over. That's probably controlled by remote. Probably had a cord coming down with remote. Someone on the ground here could maneuver that. Could also see where things were mounted on the walls. Except for those 2 holes there, the roof is primarily intact. There's a heater back here. There's some vent pipes here. I heard the train horn again. So this one has a bit more telling signs, even though we don't know exactly what it was used for. But my question once again, why was this building and what I'm calling the fortress spared? Out of everything else, I think they tore down around this building because it looks like this went out into the main building. It was connected on the inside, whereas this was just like the back part of it was on its own. So they tore down everything in front of it, and it looks like they left this and that for whatever reason. And this is right behind the rails. There's some type of port there, a plug, and that eye hook. It's a pipe right here. Some conduit laying on the ground. You can even see the stoppers for the crane system right there, so it doesn't roll past that part. So here from the outside, you could see this is not the normal outside. This looks like it would have been inside. Like they broke away the building from here. A lot of conduit here too. A couple plugs. So, although there's a wall, I think we'd still be inside another building right here and in front of it as well. But here's the manway. There's a cone up there. It looks like it had some type of alert or sensor or something that when the door closes, that pushes in. When the door opens or closes, that triggers something. I don't know what that would be. Maybe an alarm system? And then up top, 2 more light fixtures. Put the hook to good use. Hold my bag there. All right, here's your bonus look. So, look at the motor mechanisms here. It says right on it. Looks like a pulley there where there would have been more chains coming through or cable. And then looking up on top where it rides on, I'm presuming there's rails up there. And over here is the stopper. A little tree growing up there too. And then the other side here, probably identical, just a little bit darker over here. Those pipes, though, are right above it, so I don't know what purpose they would be. Almost like ventilation, but it looks like it may interfere with the crane system, possibly. And here's looking up underneath in there. So, at least there's something in here. We know that whatever was in here had to be lifted up by that crane. We know that there's a corridor, just like the other building. This one still has thick walls, just not as thick as the fortress. Fluorescent lighting was heated, has standard gauge rails, electricity and plumbing. Beyond me thinking a service bay for something, I have no clue beyond that, so I just don't know why it was saved. They basically deconstructed all around this building, and as far as we know, the other building. But this one, I'm pretty certain, went from inside here to inside the main part, as we know it did on the manway there. So just what I observed. Well, I think we've seen everything that there is to see in this building. I'm going to walk a little bit past it just to see if there's anything else out there that I couldn't see from the distance. And then we'll start heading back towards where we started, where the garbage piles are. Cover some distance, and look what we have. Our third fire hydrant. Can we see where this one's from? Mueller, 1953. Chattanooga. Is that what it says? C-H-A-T-T-A. Chattayena? I don't know what the hell that says. C-H-A-T-T-A. Then looks like Y-E-N-A. Chattayena? Chattatina? Doesn't look like Chattanooga. I don't know. Maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. So we have that. And then behind here, I do spot maybe an electrical box with some more boreholes, but then a really significant clue further in the distance. More boreholes. These ones are capped and locked, numbered 75. Another one there, and some type of panel box that's locked up as well. That one's just number 7. That's fiberglass, I believe. It's locked up for whatever reason. It might be fire hose. Observation monitoring well. Do not fill. I wonder if this site's contaminated. I think I found a really big piece of the puzzle. So, away from the buildings, south of them, came upon a pretty large pile of ties here and old creosote timbers. And behind me, I think, is the confirmation we were looking for. Looks like a spur line did service this facility. This connects right up to the Reading and Northern Main Line where that train passed by earlier. So what it came off there, back down this spur line, which has been terminated. And they have a mountain of material here now, but I think that line would have came in a certain distance and maybe went to the ballast area where we saw those ties and that plate and spike. But I think now we have the confirmation that we needed, that this place was serviced by rail. And although I don't think all the rails that we see are for train cars, especially in the concrete, which is much too narrower, I think deliveries and pickups were made here by railroad back in the day. Now don't forget, this closed, from what we know, according to Google Earth satellite, roughly 25 years ago. So they ripped up what they didn't need, probably used it somewhere else, and I don't know what the story is now. With all these monitoring boreholes, which is actually a lot more than I originally seen, I don't know if this ground's contaminated or not. Maybe that's why it's shut down. Maybe that's why nothing was built here afterwards. A lot of questions that I don't have answers to, but everything we're seeing, though, does have a story to tell. This site is bigger than I realized, though, because it goes much further south in that direction. And I don't know where it terminates, but as far as I know, there's no other structures back there. But I'm thinking maybe I should come back on an e-bike, ride this property, comb it a bit better, off camera, and then if I do find something worth filming, well, we'll make an impromptu video. The last thing I want to show you is right over here. There's a, I don't want to call it a parking lot, because it's not. It's a pad with big blocks around it. Now, this is a big piece of property. This is interesting because this is mounded up with macadam. And as you can see, there's a lot of pipes coming out. And this looks relatively new. I don't know if I want to walk on there or not. Not that it's dangerous, but I don't know if this is like an active monitored site. This is built up at least a foot from where I'm standing. So there's a lot of material here. And it's not completely flat. It's kind of like pillow shaped. Don't know what to think of that. Took a walk around the building just to make sure there's nothing back there I missed. And there's nothing. From what we covered on foot here, I think we saw primarily everything that there is to see, even though about 98% of it is already gone. But I realized I did break some of my rules during this video. And it may not be the rules you're thinking of, the rules I gave to myself. The first one is that I was very repetitive in this video, asking the same questions over and over, stating the same things over and over. That was a bad habit of mine that I tried to break, and I was doing pretty good with it, but this location kind of brought it back out of me. Not that it's a bad thing, not a good thing, depends on who is watching, I guess. But I realized afterwards I was really repetitive. I try not to do that because, well, I'm not getting any answers. I'm just asking the same thing over and over, trying to understand myself what the answer could be. The second thing is that I focused a lot of time on rather minuscule things. Now, I will say this also depends on who's watching. Some people see a location like this as nothing at all, like just a barren landscape, a couple concrete structures, nothing of interest whatsoever. Then there's people like me who see it differently, who try to envision what used to be here, what the things were used for, especially those rails, the rails inside the concrete. I don't have any certainty or confirmation. I can only go off gut instinct. But I did ask myself a lot, you know, was this equipment? Was it for trains? A little bit of both. So I just want to apologize to those who may have been frustrated with how I was doing this video, asking the same things over and over, stating the obvious over and over, and focusing too much time on one particular thing. One thing with me though, if you haven't already known, is that attention to detail is super important to me. I don't like to just breeze over something. I like to analyze it from all angles and, at least in my mind, try to have an understanding as to what we're looking at. And if we don't, that's when I put over to you guys saying, if you do know, share it down below. Because as I stated before, I learn a lot through you guys, probably more than you learn through me. But all I'm doing is taking you to these locations and sharing what I can, hoping to learn more through you. With that being said, this location did offer more than I was anticipating. Honest to God, as I said before, and I'm doing it again, I'm repeating, I was expecting this to be a short video, under 30 minutes, and I'm pretty certain that this is gonna be an over a 30-minute video. I know many of you like longer videos, some don't. I can't control the time frame for everything, but if there is things worth seeing, I'm gonna show them. I'm not just gonna breeze by and be done in 5 minutes. It would be a waste to come here. But I think I'm gonna be coming back in the future, if nothing happens here, to ride around, because this place is not posted, it's not gated, there's nothing saying we can't be here. As we saw earlier, there was another car here. There's illegal dumping going on. So this is super easy to get to. You can literally drive right in here. So I think I'm gonna come back on e-bike, do some poking around, and we may see an impromptu video in the near future. Once again though, I'm gonna ask for your help if you have any insight as to what this operation was. Like what they made here, what they did here, when it opened, when it may have closed, even what we're looking at today of what's left, what they could have been used for. By all means, I'd love to find out just as much as many of you. So hopefully we can answer those questions. And if we don't, well, that's okay too. At least we can leave it up to our imagination. Anyways, I want to thank you for coming along, listening to me ramble, repeat myself, overthink, overanalyze, and focus too much time on things from the past. But what can I say? I'm guilty of it. Sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes I get the better of myself and realize, hey, maybe less is more. Anyways, guys, take care. Thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.